And one of the things people continuously asked us was, can we get your printers? Because they were able to see the product, but they weren't able to see the printers. In bioprinting, you're working with biomaterials, you're working with hydrogels. These are more aqueous, so liquid-based compounds. So it'll be the first bioprinter that's made in India that's installed in Korea, and nobody's done this before. So we have an interesting project that is going on between IIT Hyderabad and L.V. Prasad Eye Institute in Hyderabad. Specifically, they're printing the cornea.
Welcome to India Innovates, a podcast where we dive into the stories of innovators shaping the future from the heart of India. I'm Vaishnavi.
And I'm Shrinath. Together, we'll explore cutting-edge ideas and breakthrough technologies that are transforming communities, industries, and lives across the globe.
Whether it's a revolutionary startup, a pioneering researcher, or a visionary corporate leader, if they are innovating from India or for India, you'll hear about their stories here.
We'll also delve into the ecosystem that supports them, from the regulations and policies to the contributions of large companies that drive innovation at scale.
Let's uncover how India's unique environment is fostering a wave of creativity and ingenuity.
Hear stories of challenges, triumphs, and inspirations that have driven these changemakers to create and disrupt.
This is India Innovates, where innovation meets inspiration and India takes the center stage. We are thrilled to welcome Piyush Padmanabhan, the CEO of Next Big Innovation Labs on India Innovates.
NBIL is at the forefront of bioprinting, which is used for tissue re-engineering, regenerative medicine, and more.
Let's hear stories from Piyush on India Innovates. Welcome Piyush to India Innovates.
Thank you for having me here.
You are the co-founder and CEO at Next Big Innovation Labs, which is into regenerative medicine and tissue engineering.
Yeah.
To even say it sounds complex, so why don't
Sounds
you
pretty exciting. So
simplify it for us?
Okay,
What do you do?
I'll simplify it. So I'm an entrepreneur in the regenerative medicine and tissue engineering space. So what regenerative medicine is basically you're using biotechnological practices to basically develop certain protocols or certain products, or it could be certain solutions as such, a whole medical solution that could be used to regenerate a certain lost tissue within the body. So that's regenerative medicine, where you're using biotechnology in order to improve either the quality of life of a patient, or even to improve the prospects of having organs that can be replaced in the future, far in the future. It's going to take
it
a
sounds
little
like
bit of time.
science fiction.
Yeah, it does, right? I think we started off with that statement when we were applying for a few grants earlier in 2016. But I think the world has come a long way in 8 years. So what we're seeing is when we're looking at tissue engineering and this space, so tissue engineering is specifically of building tissues, right, within a lab. It can be in a 2-dimensional format or in a 3-dimensional format. So it depends upon how you're building these tissues from scratch. There are traditional biotechnology methods, but a more specific method that we are working on at NBIL, we can call it NBIL for the rest of the podcast,
Sure.
I think is specifically focusing on bioprinting, which becomes a subset of the tissue engineering and regenerative medicine space. So in fact, it falls under a larger bracket of something called biofabrication. So that is where the term. So biofabrication is a overarching thing that comes, and under it you have different technologies, and one of it is bioprinting. And bioprinting as such comes from the core of bioprinting. I would say it's a daughter technology of 3D printing.
Right.
I would say that's how I always define bioprinting to people. So that's, I think, how
So
I would
what's the
define
difference
space.
between 3D printing and bioprinting, while it has the same tech base,
Yes.
if I understand
So
correctly?
in 3D printing, generally you're using metals, and in most cases you're using plastics. You're depositing them one layer on top of another.
Right.
In bioprinting, it's quite different. In bioprinting, you're working with biomaterials, you're working with hydrogels. These are more aqueous, so liquid-based compounds, and that's what basically makes something called biomaterial that you can print. Now, these biomaterials, when cells are put into them, they become a bio-ink. So, and that is what bioprinting is about. You're printing with biomaterials and biomaterials plus cells, which becomes a bio ink. And these two are separate forms. Within bioprinting, if you want, you can print purely with biomaterials. You can print purely with you can print with biomaterials plus cells, plus a few something called growth factors that allows the cells to actually grow, and that's how the entire concept is built out. And
So these
you
are
can
ingredients that go into.
Exactly. So you're basically making a mix, and that mix allows for the entire biomaterial for the entire scaffold or the structure to be built out. So when I'm printing it layer upon layer, so 3D printing works on a concept of building layer upon layer, right? The same core concept comes into bioprinting. You're building layer upon layer, and when you're building that layered structure, right, you're looking at how your cells can be positioned in a three-dimensional orientation, and how this three-dimensional orientation allows for the cells to interact with one another and create a tissue. So that is the output of what bioprinting is. And it comes under the umbrella of biofabrication, but it is a sister technology or a doctor technology of 3D printing. That's how we look at it.
So you put live cells within this as well?
Yes, so we put live cells within the biomaterials.
Within the biomaterials?
Yeah, and we put a few growth factors that allows the cells to, be in a very natural state. See, these cells, the cells within our body, they are used to the environment. They understand, okay, I'm in a safe zone. Now when you take them out, when you put them in a lab, they are in a completely different space, right? It's like putting a human being who was born and raised in India somewhere near the North Pole, right? You're in a completely uncharted territory. You don't understand what's going on around you, and that's a similar state for cells. And what you're trying to do within a lab is tell these cells you're fine, you're all right, you are in a safe space. So you give certain nutrition, you give certain growth factors. The biomaterial needs to create that safe space for the cells to say that, hey, you know what, you're fine. And then from there, you sort of like, when you're printing, all the cell culture techniques, the traditional biotechnology techniques that are there, come into play to actually make this a more complex field in terms of how you're building the structure and how you're taking that structure, that construct, to a tissue. So it's just a bunch of cells put in a very nice form, and then you give it the right kind of conditions, that is the right kind of atmospheric conditions, the right kind of media conditions, and then they transform into a tissue. So the biomaterial slowly disappears, the cells start to eat up the biomaterial, and they start forming their own ECM. The reason I'm able to pull my skin is because there is extracellular matrix that holds all these cells together. So that's why the skin doesn't rip off your body that easily. And the cells start metabolizing the biomaterial, and they start creating their own ECM. And basically that's how the entire tissue is
So
formed.
this is more like you put material, you put the cells on it, the cells sort of, you consume the material because of your format, and in the end there is no biomaterial left, it is only a tissue made of
Yes,
cells.
it's a tissue. So the cells completely eat up the biomaterial and create the tissue.
So
That's
these cells become, so to say, your raw material to then build upon.
Yes,
the
so they
skin.
become the raw material for the skin.
Skin,
So they become the raw material for the skin, but the biomaterial is also a raw material
Raw
per se,
material,
because the cells need that food source, right?
So what's your background? Like, how did you get into bioprinting, biotech in general, and then how did you niche it down to bioprinting skins?
So it started for me in school. So I started in my 11th grade and 12th grade. We had physics, chemistry, and math. But apart from that, you had another elective. You had computer science, you had commerce, you had biology, and then you had biotechnology. So for me, it's more of a personal story where I have seen members in my family who have been treated for diseases that are sort of ailments that don't have any solutions, right?
Okay.
And when you look at that, you're looking at creating a solution for that, and that's what attracted me towards biotech, because biology is obviously looking at becoming a doctor, you're focused towards that, but biotech is more focused towards how you can build the solution. And that's one of the reasons I took it up in 11th and 12th. Then when I moved into the biotech, when I moved into college in VIT University, I took up biotech as my major there. So during my undergraduation days at VIT, I got to explore more concepts within bioprinting. And then in my third year came a biobusiness, where there was a topic called biobusiness, where you understand how businesses were built in the biotechnology space. You hear the whole Kiran Majumdar short story, how Biocon was set up from the ground up, and how different companies like Unilever were set up and things like that. So you get to understand how business tycoons were made in the biotech space. And that really fascinated me. I knew I didn't want to go into research.
Okay.
I knew that I wanted to be more on the management side. Then my first job post my 4 years at VIT was at Biocon.
Okay.
So at Biocon, I was working in the sales and marketing wing, primarily focusing on sales. I started my career on sales, and I think that's the best decision I've made, because sales teaches you so much about what the end customer wants or what people want specifically, and that is where I got an exposure towards kidney and liver transplantation sectors. So while working there in the kidney and liver sectors, one of the things that I saw is that there were so many people in the space of organ transplantation, right? You had doctors, you had organ transplant coordinators, you had nurses, you had healthcare workers at every level, that is taking care of the patient, ensuring the patient is treated really well from the moment they come into the hospital with a kidney failure to the moment they get a transplant. But the only thing that, although there are so many things happening, there are so many patients on organ transplant waitlist.
Okay.
And you're looking at liver is much more easier, but when you're looking at kidney, when you're looking at the heart, when you're looking at the cornea, when you're looking at these kind of situations, you have so many patients waiting. And doctors do treat them really well, but then you cannot control which patient gets which transplant because there is a wait list.
And also match percentages. right?
Exactly, match percent. A lot of
Other
complications that go
parameters.
into this, right? Sometimes transplants that go from a mother to son fails, or from son to mother fails, just because the body was not, the HLA typing didn't match. So when you're looking at those kind of scenarios, right, you're looking at a scenario that can be avoided. And I think after Biocon gave me that initial sort of insight into this perspective. And then I moved to Roche Pharmaceuticals, a bit of an MNC, Swiss-based pharmaceutical manufacturer, but specifically focused on patient quality of life, again, in the kidney and liver transplantation space. So that's where, you get to understand how transplant coordinators also work with the patients.
Right.
And when they lose a patient, how do they feel? When a doctor loses a patient, how do they feel?
So
You
what
get to-
was your sales? What were you trying to sell to this?
So we were specifically focused on the control of hemoglobin within the blood, and the second one is post-transplant medication, where you're bringing down the body's immune system so that the organ doesn't get rejected. So these are called immunosuppressants. So we were specifically working on that, and we were selling that to the doctors, and obviously that was going on. But one thing is that when we were looking at the space, when I was looking at the space, I was looking at we are looking at going to another planet, or we are looking at going to visiting other solar systems and all of that. But I think there are bigger problems here that can be solved. Yes, we are at the forefront of medical technology right now, but I think the boundaries can be pushed. And that's when I met Alok. Alok is a high school friend of mine, 11th grade. We studied together over here, and that's how we started off. He was in the 3D printing space specifically. I was from the biotechnology background. And Pooja, who also happens to be Alok's cousin, comes from a biotech background. So all three of us put our brains together to actually start this. And that's how we got into the space of bioprinting. It was, we noticed that there was a need that had to be met. And how that need was met was something that we wanted to focus on. And that's how we started Next Big Innovation Labs.
Wonderful.
So that's my story.
Piyush, this is okay, but I can't shake something off my mind from your previous description. You're saying all cells come together and form tissue and all. This sounds very freaky. It sounds like you're creating a monster and something's going to come. And I'm sure you get that a lot.
Yeah,
But
we
that's the
do.
first
We do.
image, yeah.
Yeah. I think we do. In terms of our thing also, when we are exploring the space, right, we want to ensure that everything is ethically done. That's the first thing. I think, we are, the human body is so complex. You're working at a very minute level, right? When right now we are only able to print like this size of a vein or an artery. Now, the technology has so many things to do in terms of getting to finer capillaries and things like that before you can build fully functional organs. Cell assembly has been going on for like ages now. I mean, it's not something new.
Okay.
Cell assembly has been, tissue engineering is all about that. That's how the field started, right? You're building tissues within a lab. But the focus for us is how do these tissues how can they be used? So there are a plethora of applications across industries where these tissues can be used. And the final clinical application will have to go through so many bodies for it to get approved. In terms of what can be approved and things like that. So everything has to, go through a set of channels to actually get approved.
So we don't have to fear superhumans, monsters.
No,
Not
nothing.
yet.
Not yet.
I hope it's not a not
Not
yet.
yet.
and
No, I don't think ever, because we have the technology is so how do you say it's so difficult to even create a small tissue that has veins. So even the tip of my finger has a very minute capillary that goes there and supplies blood, right? Now we are not able to recreate that within a lab. Now, say even if we have the technology to do that, it takes so much biomaterial skill, so much understanding of biomaterials, and so much understanding of medias that keep the cells alive. Even if I take like a liver, it comprises of at least 4 to 5 different cell types. Now, keeping all those 4 to 5 different cell types alive for an extended period of time takes some crazy material science.
No, so one, I think is the material science, but second is the ethics. You're saying there are enough regulations
Yeah,
today,
there are enough regulations
today
to
so that
control
you
all of
can't,
this. Yes.
you can't
So-
have a rogue lab doing something.
Yeah, so you can't have a rogue lab doing something like this. And getting into this space is quite, difficult, because at the end of the day, you're looking at different biomaterials that are coming in. So one is that barrier to entry, but the second thing is, even if you enter into the space, there are a lot of bodies that help control everything that is going on. Hospitals have ethics committees that ensure that this is in place. And also when you're looking at government agencies like Drug Controller General of India or Indian Council of Medical Research, all of them have things in place to ensure that tissue engineered products, when they go into human beings, there are certain guidelines or guide rails in place, and companies and individuals who are working in the space, researchers and all of that, they need to follow it. And all of this is put down by hospitals and a lot of other people too.
So Piyush,
Yeah.
I understand that we are very far away in terms of creating full-fledged organs that could literally transplant. But where are we starting off with? You are doing some groundwork with skin, right? So could you tell us a little bit about that?
So we started off as a company in 2016, and when we started off, I think I'll give a little bit of a backstory here. So when we started off, we see all of us didn't have an idea of the space, right? So since we didn't have an idea of the space, I think one of the primary things that was running in our mind is we need to we understand that there is a use case for bioprinting. We know the final goal is to see how we can sort of like print smaller organs within a lab that can be transplanted, used for transplants. Given that my background was in organ transplantation, I had worked in the sector. So I think primarily when we were looking at this space, one of the things that came up was that we wanted to build a product in the space, and I think we wanted it to be something new. We went and spoke to a lot of researchers, and we didn't have an idea of what we wanted to build, nothing. And we told them, hey, you know what, we have this this one idea, and we don't know how to go wherever. And most of the researchers said, if you want to build a product, you need to build the machine as well. So that's where the bioprinter came into being. We started, we went out, we mustered a few government grants. One from the Karnataka state government called the Elevate grant now. At that point of time, in 2016, it was called Idea to POC. So we were the first recipients of it. And we were incubated at Bangalore Bioinnovation Center, which was at Electronic City Phase 1. So we got incubated there. And we were very well supported by the Karnataka government to build out the first POC of
But
the
you were
bioprinter.
building the very first bioprinter. There were
Yes,
no
so
bioprinters
there
around.
were no bioprinters in India at that point of time.
Okay.
So we built it out from scratch.
So is this machine sort of patented by NIB?
We have portions of bioprinting as a
NIBL,
technology has been patented before and all of that, but there are certain portions of the technology that are where you have the freedom to operate. So NBIL, we basically patented a couple of those. So I'll explain that as well.
Sure.
But just to give you, I'm coming to skin, but I'm just giving you like a little bit of a background as to what went into actually building this. I think once we made the POC, right? Sorry about that. Once we made the POC, we went back to these researchers. We told them, hey, you know what? We have a bioprinter in place, a POC. Can you give us some materials? And they gave us the biomaterials. They said, you know what? I also want some tests to be done. They had machines from Europe that they were using, all of that. But then the good thing was that we got a bunch of materials that we could work with. So these are hydrogels, biomaterials, like I spoke before. So we were able to print with them without cells. We were just able to see if the printer prints, and we got a good POC. Once we got that, the next phase for us was to see, how could we validate it even further, right? So that's where the patents came into play. We developed few systems that allowed for precise movement. So if it's a 3D printer, right, at the end of the day, so you're using 3 axes, X, Y, and Z, to build a 3-dimensional construct. Now, when you're using X, Y, Z, you need to be precise, specifically in biology. You need to be precise. So we built in certain anti-backlash systems, we call them that, and that allows us to sort of reduce the error rate during printing. And the other one is temperature control system. So we developed a patent around that. Now that we had these 2 key patents, we knew that we were at the right point to enter into the product building phase, building products out of the machines. And we went, out, spoke to a lot of people. We spoke to people such as P&G, we spoke to people such as Unilever in India. They were the big guys in India at that
So
point in
what
time.
were the applications?
Yeah, what would they use something like this for?
So they would use it for, say, if I'm developing a cosmetic product,
Okay.
if I'm developing a shampoo, if I'm developing a soap, or if I'm developing a body wash, the first thing that it comes into contact is with the skin. Right.
So you are essentially sampling a human tissue, human skin?
So yes, so
Okay.
what these guys do is they either take it, previously it started off, first, they used to take cadaver skin. So that means from a dead body. So they used to take it from that. Then they moved into pig skin, because pig skin is very similar to human skin. So that's what they say. And then what happened was the advent of biotechnology came in, where they started moving into three-dimensional skin models that were created using traditional biotechnology methods.
Okay.
Like I said,
this is to check the chemical
yes,
reaction. And
yes. So they basically would put the chemical on the skin,
Okay.
and they would test skin irritation, skin corrosion, how much is it diffusing into the skin.
Okay.
If it's a UV protection cream, how much is it
Efficacy of the
efficacy of
product
the
and all
product.
Okay, now I get it.
So
Yeah.
that's what they use it for.
Okay.
Now it's not only cosmetic companies, it's also chemical, agrochemical companies.
Mm.
So for example, a company developing a pesticide needs to understand, once the pesticide goes onto the field, what happens when it goes into the soil, goes into the river, and goes downstream and goes near the sea. What is the level of chemical there when it comes into contact with human skin?
Okay.
Or even the farmer touching it.
Yeah,
happens,
farmer touching it is obvious, but someone
Even,
near
yeah.
the sea,
Mm,
what
mm,
would be
mm.
the level of chemical there, and what exactly happens, because skin is the first point of contact.
Mm.
So when we spoke to
So
these
did you
guys,
see success with these companies? What
yes,
was your
so
POC selling like to?
so when we spoke to these guys, right, we sort of understood, okay, what exactly they wanted. What do they want? We were trying to get a recce of the market, trying to get a feel of, okay, what's happening in the space. And most of them told us that this is what they use it for. And once we had that understanding, we knew that we needed to bioprint skin. So we had the machine in place, we had the protocols in place, we didn't have any of the protocols for making skin, but we knew that the market wanted skin. And another model that they're using is in silico, where they're utilizing bioinformatics to understand how these chemicals interact with skin, and basically understanding and having a database. And if in the future you're studying chemical X, what happens when chemical X interacts with the skin is already recorded in the database. They already have data with that.
So that's more
those are-
simulation.
That's more
Software
simulation. Yeah,
simulation.
software simulation and all
But
that.
no actual physical.
Yeah,
product
but
it is.
to
These
get
data
the,
models come from where?
they come from the
The
actual research that is done.
Research.
So that's how these guys work. And so this was basically it. And when we were specifically exploring the space, right, when we were talking to a lot of the people in the space, what we understood was that skin. We just kept hearing that. So we knew that there was a big market validation for skin.
Okay.
We knew that there was a requirement for it.
Examples
Not only in these
from apart from these
Cosmetics,
beauty cosmetics, what could
I
be
told you about the
potential
chemical,
other applications?
chemicals,
Sure.
agrochemical companies,
Sure.
chemicals like normal DuPont chemicals, people like that. So when they are testing their products, they need, if they're coming out with a new chemical, they need these chemicals to be tested. So pharmaceutical companies who are coming out with topical drugs for the skin, for specific.
Seems like a fairly large market then.
Yeah, so you have a lot of people utilizing it across. So
This is still more from a testing perspective.
Yeah.
If one were to imagine skin grafting kind of applications, what would that look like in future?
I would say skin grafting. If I have a small cut, you don't need
Sure,
grafting there.
sure.
If I have a deep gash, also stitches do the work.
But in cases
But in
like
cases
severe
like
burns,
that, yeah, exactly. So in those it's more immediate.
Okay.
Burns you need immediate treatment. So that's where you would rather use, you can't use the patient's own cells there.
Right.
So you would rather use a biomaterial. So there are already cases where people are using fish skin. In Brazil, so basically there's a specific kind of fish, I'm not getting the name, but that fish is specifically applied onto wounds for accelerating healing. This is specifically used for burns.
right.
So that's an interesting concept, right? You're just using a biomaterial. Something as simple as collagen can also be used. There are a lot of materials that are out there. People are right now exploring silk-based polymers. Looking at silk-based polymers as
Silk as in the worm silk?
yes, silkworm. So
Yeah.
silk-based biomaterials for wound healing applications. So that's an application that people are exploring. So there are so many things that specifically people are looking at when you're looking at burns. Now, where this would actually come into play, where you're using the patient's own cells, is in the cases where you have non-healing wounds, such as diabetic foot ulcers.
Right.
So in those cases where patients undergo so much trauma, they're not able to walk in a lot of cases and all of that. These are very complex wounds. I mean, all of us have seen wounds. You
Yeah.
have a wet portion, you have a dry portion, but then you need to understand the dynamics of all of these portions to understand how the skin can be made. Here you have time. Here you can take the patient's own cells and do it. So it depends upon how much time the patient has.
Okay.
Okay, so if it's in an army situation or if it's in a combat situation for the Army, Navy or Air Force, you're looking at immediate. So that's why you're not looking at the patient's own cells. You're looking, that's more of biomaterial science. You don't need bioprinters there. Where you need bioprinters is specifically when you're looking at very, very complex wounds that do not heal over a long period of time. and it's more specifically diabetic foot ulcers. So
Okay.
that's where we saw the use case for the skin.
Any clinicals you were doing and any trials?
No, we weren't doing any trials, but the goal for our skin product was there. So we knew that we wanted to bioprint skin. We knew that we wanted to move to that direction. We had the market validation, so we started working on it in 2018. So we worked on it. We actually, as we were working, we were continuously keeping an eye out for, okay, what is happening out there. There were other companies also working on bioprinted skin outside India. And for us, within India, we wanted to build a product, but we knew that the product is more global. It's not
Right.
a product for India alone.
By
It's-
product, I want to clarify one
Yeah.
piece here. Do you really mean the end printed product, or because you touched base on 2-3 things? You started in 2016. You moved into skin.
Then there was a printer.
Then there's a printer that came in.
The
what
printer
was your
came in and then
business?
the skin came.
Okay, the
Okay.
printer came in and then the
yeah,
skin
but
came.
what were you selling? Yeah.
What so in between all this, where were you? Did you start seeing any commercialization of this model?
Not at that point of time.
Okay.
Because we knew that there's a portion of R&D. Like I said, we have to develop the biomaterial, right? So we developed our proprietary biomaterial, similar to what Coke has its own secret formulation. We have our own proprietary biomaterial for skin. So we developed that. Very complex steps that go into it, and we developed our own medias, things like that. I think till 2020, till COVID, I think we were at a point where we could actually convert the scaffold into the skin. So we were able to do that. So the skin consists, we were looking at the top 2 layers of the skin. It's called the epidermis and the dermis. So we wanted to build that structure that will be used by these companies. And that's where we were focusing on. And the thing was, you need biomaterials to come in there. The printer has to do its job. And at the same time, you need to have a good understanding of cell biology to understand how these cells are handled. So it's a team of different interdisciplinary people coming together, and that's the reason we love this space, because it's just not one person doing everything. It's about different people coming together to make this happen.
So what if somebody wants to do like a machine?
Mhm.
You want to touch base a little bit about that?
Sure. So when we are looking at the machine, we are looking at we are looking at an instrument that allows you to print in a 3-dimensional space. It can be a simple line that is drawn, or it can be singular droplets where you're placing them in a 3-dimensional space. And it could also be something that is melted, like how you find in 3D printers. It depends upon what kind of technology you're going with. So when we built out this technology, I think the focus for us was we are not going to commercialize it. When we initially built it out,
The printers
yeah,
itself.
printers, the bio printers, we didn't want to come because
You wanted to sell the end product.
we wanted to have sort of like that system where we don't give out the technology that allows you to print skin.
Okay, but you sell the
Because-
skin itself.
Yeah, we sell the product itself.
Okay.
So we were in that zone, and basically we built the printers out, and it was only for internal use.
Okay.
We didn't give it out to anybody.
Okay.
And then we took it to Merck Pharmaceuticals, Merck KGaA in Germany, where we got a good technical validation there. Our printer was there for a while. They were testing it and all of that, so we got some good engineering data for us to work on. That was the only place it went to, apart from our lab.
Okay.
And when I think 2020 happened, I think it took a lot of companies off guard, and we sort of knew that, for us to bounce back, it would take another 3 years. Given that the world is still opening up, it would take a longer time. So we needed to have a alternative strategy as well. And one of the things people continuously asked us was, can we get your printers? Because they were able to see the product,
Right.
but they
right.
weren't able to see the
how
printers.
it's
How you
Yeah.
got it done.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what we did was we started going into the printer business.
So is this a careful pivot that you did, or was
Yes,
it?
it was very. It was a decision that wasn't easy for us to make, because you're focused on one thing and then suddenly you have to pivot. If COVID didn't happen, I would be having a very, very different conversation here. But
Yeah.
COVID happened. But I think when that happened, I think a lot of companies, startups specifically, it's very difficult for startups to pivot. When you're making the decision, it's a commitment that you're moving in a completely. You have to not only align yourself as a founder, but you have to align your team
Yeah.
Yeah.
behind you, because
Yeah.
your team is working with you, right?
Yeah.
So when you're looking at pivoting it into a completely different direction, you're the end goal, you're basically changing the entire direction, right? We started off by, we said, okay, one thing that is missing in the market is knowledge. People don't understand bioprinting. People don't understand the space. So what we did in 2020, our entire team was sitting at home, and we launched a course in bioprinting.
Okay.
We said, we launched it to clinicians, we launched it to everybody. We just said, people can have access to this course, so they had that. And that helped in, kind of raising up the awareness about the technology, and at the same time we started marketing our printers.
So by that time you said, okay, printer is the right way to go.
Printer, we knew that printer was the right way because we got a few good orders that sort of, and that too from government institutions, such as King George Medical University was our very first order, and then the other one was from Central Leather Research Institute in Chennai. So that gave us very good, solid validation. That,
and these bioprinters again print skin, or do they print something else?
So at Central Leather Research Institute, they're using it for printing alternative proteins. If you're looking at Manipal University, they're looking at cartilage applications, specifically knee cartilage. That's the focus point over there. If you're looking at, say, for one of our customers in this one, Mupin's Medical College, which is there in Wayanad, they are specifically looking at how they can translate this technology such that you can have more personalized treatments for the patients. That's a focus point there. You have different subset of our customers, such as D.Y. Patil College, D.Y. Patil University, which is in Kolhapur, specifically utilizing the printer for bioprinted bone. So they're looking at,
and it's the same printer that all of them are using.
so different versions of it.
Okay.
So no two cells in our body are alike, right? So they are so different because the environment that my liver has, or the environment that my eye has, and the environment that my skin cells have is very, very different. Because they are so different, you need to recreate that within a lab. Imagine the pain there. Now, when you're trying to recreate those different environments within the lab, you also need to have different technologies that allow for you to print these structures. And that's where the technology has to be as malleable as the requirements for the solution. And that's where I think one of the things that we look at is, okay, first we understand our customers' requirements. So the world is moving to a very customer-oriented zone, if you see. When you're looking at medical devices, people generally don't customize. But we say our printers are called Trivima. Trivima in Sanskrit means three-dimensional. That's where the name came from.
Wonderful name.
Yeah.
And the Trivima bioprinters. And then our control software is called Niyantranam. Niyantranam in Sanskrit means control. So that's where the name comes from. And we stick to the Indian roots. So we very proudly manufacture in Bangalore, and close to around 91%. During the COVID period, we took a lot of time. I think this is a lesson for a lot of biomedical engineers as well as biomedical entrepreneurs. People think that it's very difficult to build in India, right? If you're a startup. But what my team did, which I think even I didn't know, was that it could be done. I didn't know that this could be achieved because they went out of their way. They said, COVID period, all of us are sitting at home doing nothing. Let's call up vendors.
Let's call up
Vendors.
So
they called up suppliers of different parts of our machines.
okay.
Because we were getting some from outside India. They said, why don't we look at it from making within India? It becomes much more easier for us because during COVID, exports and imports were impacted.
So
Yeah.
this then became a frugal way of trying to be self-sustainable.
Exactly. So a few things we did in-house. A few things we found great vendors in India. 91% of the product is now made in India, and 9% has to come from outside. So we reduced the requirement that is coming from outside.
Oh, fantastic.
And people think you can't find that level of quality in India, but if you really look, search, talk to people, they will connect you with someone else, and that's how it goes.
So in a way, you're localizing the whole production. And what about AI? Have you tried to have an overlap with AI in some of the?
Yes, I think, like I said, biology requires precision, right? When you're looking at precision, you're looking at 3 levels. So one is mechanical. So we have a patent on that. The second one is electronics, where you're looking at boards that can control your motors in such a way that you can just move by a few microns if required.
Right.
And then the third level of precision comes through software and AI. So our software is built in-house as well as the AI systems. And what we're doing is improving the precision of these printers. Why are we doing this? Is because one day we want to see these printers being utilized for patient-oriented applications. We want to see doctors using them in surgery rooms. We want to see doctors using them specifically for treatment of certain ailments. And we believe that can be done only when the doctors, when the technology becomes so precise that the doctors can completely rely on them. So that's where we're utilizing AI. So we're working.
How long do you think from today? How long in few years, or few decades?
Yeah.
How
Hopefully
far
not
are
few
we?
decades,
How
but
far are we?
how far are we from that?
I would say 3D printing of bone
Uh-huh.
is already under clinical trials
Oh,
at
wow.
AIMS.
Okay.
So people are it's an innovation from IIT Bombay, and currently they are doing the clinical trials. If I'm not wrong, you can cross verify me on that. But then phase 2A of the clinical trials, but specifically the application there is for minor bone injuries.
Okay.
So minor bone injuries that can be corrected by just printing a smaller construct. Say for you have these hairline fractures,
Hairline
things like that,
fractures, just about
which
to
don't
go.
heal, fractures that don't heal
Heal,
at
yeah.
all. So in those kind of complex scenarios is where they want to try it, and they're currently doing it at AIMS in New Delhi. Very, very interesting project, and they will go into multi-center trials soon. We have an interesting project that is going on between IIT Hyderabad and LV Prasad Eye Institute in Hyderabad. Specifically, they're printing the cornea. The
Oh.
application there is to see how the cornea can be applied. A lot of patients go through corneal scarring, a lot of diseases of the cornea, and close to around easily 1.4 million people in the country are impacted by corneal illnesses, and that's where they're looking at how the cornea can be applied. They can be printed and applied so that it starts forming, the cornea itself starts forming using the patient's own cells that is already there. So that is specifically how they are focusing on this.
So, Piyush, we're hearing a lot of these applications. Give us a sense of what's the size of this market.
So the bioprinting market as a whole is about a $2 to $3 billion industry as of 2023,
Okay.
and but we feel that this is again, you're looking at different markets, right?
Yeah.
We believe that the numbers are much higher than that because we are in the space. We believe it's about a $4 to $5 billion economy because the market, because the economy as such, when you're looking at how countries are looking at adopting alternative technologies, how companies are looking at adopting alternative technologies, and also how researchers, there's a big interest amongst researchers and clinicians. So that's where we are seeing that the market growing about 10% to 15%. That's the range that we're seeing a year-on-year growth from 4 to 5 billion at the moment globally.
It's not a very small niche because when we
Yeah.
started, I thought it was like some research project just getting out of commercialization
Getting
or
out
so.
of its scope.
Seems
But
so
how?
small.
Where are you commercially? And what's your relationship like? Your VCs, I wanted to touch base a little bit on that. Who's backing this? Who's being very patient through this journey?
Yeah. Seems like you need a lot of patience.
Yeah,
No,
because this is clearly deep tech.
It is.
Yeah.
And deep techs take years.
And it's
to-
not just AI. Because
and
there's a
it's
lot
just
more.
not AI, so it's
Yeah.
more complex than that. So what is it going to take for you? Where are you currently?
So we are currently we are already in the market. We have around 27 installations across the country, and now we started expanding.
Installations of these machines.
Machines, yeah. Of
So-
the 3D bioprinters, we have put them across different parts of the country, north,
you
south,
sell
east,
them?
west.
You sell
Yes,
them
we
or
sell
you
them. We sell them. We have great distribution partners. We have good channel sales partners that also aid us in the journey. But I think now, in another week, I'm traveling to Korea to do our first international installation. So it'll be the first bioprinter that's made in India that's installed in Korea, and nobody's done this before. So South Korea is a very, very difficult market, sort of like to enter also.
What's the application? I'm assuming it's
Biomaterials. So they're developing new biomaterials and they're looking at that. And they also want to teach their students. So it's a university. And specifically, I'm going there to meet with the head of the department specifically and to understand how the applications can be further deepened, or the collaborations can be further deepened. One of the ways in which we do this is we look at the reasons we move in this direction is because we look at how we can customize, not only customize but collaborate.
Right.
So this field requires different people coming together. So we understand the engineering really well. We've been doing it great for the past 6 years. We look at, we bring our engineering strengths, the scientists bring in their research strengths. And now the focus of the company is on the machines purely, that is it.
So now you have seen commercialization.
Yeah, we've seen commercialization.
So you're what does it take for a founder in this kind of space to say raise funds? What does the VC or the company who's the fund house that's financing you? What should they know about it? What's your
interesting.
relationship with your VCs?
You've raised funding, right?
You've raised
No,
funding,
no,
right?
you've not raised
yet.
funding.
Not.
Okay.
We have the first 3 years were completely on
On
grants.
grants. That's interesting.
And then after that was completely on sales.
Sales.
So we are
are you
revenue-
profitable?
We are not yet cumulatively profitable,
Okay.
but year on year, yes, we are profitable. And
That's
we are showing close to around, I think, right now we are at a 120% growth. We just closed our books for FY 23-24, 120% as compared to the previous year. So we are happy with the results, but not yet break even, I would say. But I think what we want to do is create value in the Indian economy. And for us to do that, we need to obviously build be patient. You said, right? Who's patient with you? I think it's our team. They are very patient with us because we've been obviously they're invested into this as well, right? We have people who have been there since the beginning, and we have a good work environment that way. So I think that helps a lot. The team, the culture that you build, I think in the deep tech space that helps a lot. Investors, yes, it's not like we have not tried previous rounds or anything like that, but I mean the situations were different then. We were working on skin, and then now we are in a completely different space. So now what we're doing is we have the printers. The printers are doing well. We're sort of like putting them out there into the market. Then the next phase is now we invest in projects.
Okay.
So we are finding researchers who are there across the country, across the world.
You would like to collaborate with them? in
Yeah,
their
so
research?
we provide the printers, we provide the capital, you do the research, we commercialize. As simple as that.
That's a different model of
Yeah, so that's how we look at it. So the focus for us is how can we create value in the space, and it doesn't only have to be in India. We look at it from a global perspective, and that's where the investors come in.
Okay.
So we are looking at investors. When we look at investors, we look how they align with our journey.
Wonderful.
So we look at if they understand what we're trying to do in the space, if they understand the space, because you don't want investors who don't understand the space. As a deep tech founder, and I think this would be a thing to all the other founders. I think when you're looking at an investor, as much as the investor is looking at you, I think you as an entrepreneur need to also look at the investors that you're approaching, because they need to their goals need to align with your goals. And I think at any stage, it's important because it's not just about raising money. You can also raise it from banks. You can raise from multiple different sources.
Yeah.
And there's good support from the Indian ecosystem, the government ecosystem. We've been funded by DST, DBT, Department of Biotechnology, under the BIRAC scheme, big scheme, and Karnataka government, the Department of Science and Technology, and Atal Innovation Mission.
Right.
So, and Niti Aayog and all of that. So,
Okay.
we've been,
What sort of support did you get?
one is obviously funding.
Yeah.
So that's the main thing. But the second thing is they open up doors for you. You understand what are the tools that are available to you, not only in India, but also outside India. They connect you with people outside India as well, so that you can go and meet them or have a discussion with them sitting in India, understand their regulatory requirements. The third thing is IP. How can you protect your IP? So the government actually, the Karnataka government specifically reimburses a certain percentage of the funds that you invest into IP, and so does the central government if you're a startup. And so there's a lot of support for the first 10 years. So that's where all of this comes into play.
It's wonderful to see state initiatives and national
Support like this, yeah?
Support like this, right? Do they in return take certain micro equities, or how does the economics work for them?
So there are three ways in which the government works. One is through grants. The other one is sort of like a loan.
Loans.
Yeah, so
Okay.
it's a loan that the government gives you. And the third one is obviously they invest for equity.
Equity.
Yeah, but you can also apply through, the government has partnered with banks. So they have HDFC, SBI, so all of these banks, specifically what the government does is they have certain schemes, so you can apply for those schemes. So specifically if you're looking to scale up, the central government has these schemes where they've tied up with national banks, and you can apply to these national banks saying that, okay, I need to scale up this one, or I need to buy certain equipment
So your
for
working
my
capital
factory,
also,
things like
yeah.
that. So it's more of equipment capital, I would call it.
Capital.
Working capital, because you're looking at capital for buying equipment, or even working capital, they do have loans. So the government does have, and at a very low interest rate as well. So that's how they work.
Wonderful.
And grants are there, obviously. And another way that they support is obviously when the fiscal support is this, and you have the more of the mentoring support, where they allow you to understand, okay, what is the space like, or they connect you with certain people within the universities abroad and as well as within India. They also arrange for delegate visits, where we've been a part of the Karnataka State incubation ecosystem at Bangalore Bioinnovation Center. During that, we sort of, a lot of people, dignitaries from governments, dignitaries from companies, dignitaries from different companies from outside India also used to come, and they used to visit our lab. They used to get a feel of the technology, understand what we are doing. And then we moved into an Atal incubation, the Atal incubation mission. They have something called Atal incubation centers at Jyoti Institute of Technology. So that's where we are at right now. And a lot of people come in. So they come in and they sort of, meet with us, understand what we are doing. Same thing happens. You get that exposure, and then obviously they take you as delegations to other countries, where you can be a part of certain conferences and all of that. So that's another thing.
Wonderful.
So it seems like a very well thought strategy to support startups in this
Yes,
space.
and I think they also, you get access to a lot of sort of support ecosystems apart from the government as well. So that means that could also be from, say, universities and that the government is affiliated with, both central and state. I'm not saying only one, but this is what we are seeing from the other side, right? The government says we're doing things for startup, but this is what we are seeing. And
then both state and central government, and I'm
yeah,
sure there's a lot of recognition as well.
Yeah, we got to meet with Prime Minister Modi, a couple of years ago, and basically we got an opportunity to showcase the technology to him and tell him about what are the applications of the technology and all of that. And we were one of the showcase companies for the Atal Innovation Mission, Niti Aayog as such, to showcase to the Prime Minister about what is happening in the country. And it was a proud moment for us because that's what you want, right? You want to showcase it to the Prime Minister and say, okay, this is what we are doing in the country. And yeah.
So more power to you, Piyush.
Thanks.
I think
Thank you.
we have come to the end of our
But it
podcast.
seems like a fascinating journey, and yeah, wish you all the
Thank
luck.
you.
I think we need more entrepreneurs like you in this space, such critical spaces in India.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me here. I think very few of us get to share our journey, and I think the more we share our journey, the more young entrepreneurs and people working in the space feel less frightened about actually, getting into the space.
Especially something like biotech.
Yeah, biotech, bioprinting, any deep tech space. If you see, there's a lot of hesitance, and I think we need more entrepreneurs in this space. Especially Indians, we need to have more entrepreneurs in this space, and in any which way that we as deep tech entrepreneurs can do that. I think that's our focus
Wonderful.
as well.
Thank you.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.